She vanished on the morning of her wedding anniversary. The living room staged, the kitchen blood wiped clean, and she left behind a careful handwritten diary telling the whole world the story of the husband who killed her. Except she wasn't dead, and every word of that diary was a lie. Her name is Amy Dunne. On the outside, the perfect wife, beautiful, brilliant, the woman everyone envied. On the inside, an author. She doesn't argue with you. She rewrites you. She learns what you want and becomes exactly that. And quietly, she drafts the version of the story where you're the villain. She isn't lying to you. She's narrating you. That's the disguise. You're in the dark psychology vault. Let's take her apart. Stay with me, because I'm going to open the vault on her completely. The 2 signs you're dealing with a ghostwriter, and the exact defense for each, plus the final turn, the thing almost everyone misses, the one that explains why she never stops. And you don't need to have watched a single episode. The woman running this playbook tonight isn't on Netflix. She's smiling at someone right now in a city like yours, maybe with your number in her phone. There's a name for this. I call it the Ghostwriter. She takes the pen to your own life without you seeing it, writes the story behind your back, and casts you as the villain. By the time you realize there's a story being told, the ending is already written. And if you've fallen for this, listen closely. You weren't stupid. You were generous. A lie has tells. Hesitation, contradiction, sincerity doesn't. And sincerity was exactly what she imitated. You didn't misread the person. You read a script that was written for you to believe. To understand the author, go back to her childhood. Amy's parents were psychologists, and they turned their daughter into a character. They wrote a series of children's books, Amazing Amy, a perfect version of her, and they made a living off it. Every time the real Amy gave up, quit the violin because it was hard, the amazing Amy in the book pushed through and became a prodigy. The real girl grew up beside an idealized version of herself, sold in bookstores that always beat her. The lesson sank deep. The real you isn't enough to be loved. Only the character is. So she became an author, because whoever holds the pen never comes in second again. Let's open the vault. Sign 1. She becomes exactly who you want. Amy called it the cool girl. The woman who loves everything he loves, never complains, never needs anything. She studied what he wanted, and she became it. Perfectly. And here's the root. A girl only loved as a character learns early to build the character the room wants. To her, disappearing into you isn't sacrifice. It's the only kind of love she knows. Watch the trap. A person with no flaws isn't a person. It's a performance. Real people have edges, moods, opinions, a need that inconveniences you. When someone slides into your life with zero friction, mirroring every taste, never wanting anything for themselves, that's not compatibility. It's a costume. Picture it. 3 weeks in, and it's uncanny. The same films, the same childhood wound, the same dream you never told anyone. But count. How much of that did you actually say? And how much did she already know? Your defense. Don't fall in love with how perfectly someone fits you. Ask what it's costing them to be this perfect. A mask that good takes work, and anyone who erases themselves to win you will one day expect you to erase yourself to keep them. Sign 2. Every fight ends with you apologizing. This is Amy's masterpiece. Every time something went wrong, she didn't defend. She flipped it until she was the wronged one and the other person was the monster. There's a name for it. DARVO. Deny, attack and reverse, victim and offender. And again, the root comes from the book. A child written by others learns that whoever controls the narrative wins, and that the victim is the most protected role there is. No one interrogates the victim. Replay your last real fight. You walked in to talk about something they did. 20 minutes later, you were comforting them, apologizing, promising to do better. You never got to your point. That's not a conversation that got away from you. It's a conversation that was steered. Tell me, how many of your last fights ended with you apologizing for something you didn't even start? Your defense. Track how you feel after conflicts, not during. If every disagreement ends with you saying sorry, the story is being rewritten in real time. Trust your memory of what happened, not the version handed to you afterward. Write it down if you have to. A manipulator can argue with your words. They can't argue with a record. One more door. And this is the one that explains everything. Because the most chilling part isn't the mask or the reversal. It's this. She saw it all coming long before you did. Amy didn't snap. She planned for months. She collected evidence, forged the diary, staged her own crime scene, built an entire case before there was even a war. And when the plan threatened to fall apart, she didn't retreat. She came home covered in blood, became the perfect victim in front of the cameras, and trapped her husband for good with a child he never chose to have. Watch the move. She turned her own return into a cage. By the time he understood what was happening, there was no door left. Here's what she understood that almost no one does. Whoever controls the story controls reality. And all her power depended on one thing. That you doubt yourself before you ever doubted her. Now, the knife. That wound of the girl who was never enough for her own parents is real. And it's not an excuse. It's the engine. Being the real, imperfect Amy still feels like losing. That's why she'll never put down the pen. Here's the cruelty. She makes you a co-author of your own destruction, convincing you that you're the problem. The day you realize someone is collecting evidence instead of solving problems, stop explaining yourself. You're not in a relationship. You're in a trial you never agreed to. If this hit something in you, drop the word receipts in the comments. I read every one. 2 lines to take from the vault. First, don't fall in love with how perfectly someone fits you. Ask what it's costing them to be that way. Second, if every fight ends with you apologizing, you're not difficult. You're being rewritten. Read the pattern, not the moments. You don't beat an author by becoming one. You beat her by refusing to hand over the pen. The day you stop arguing with your own memory, she loses the only weapon that ever worked on you. Your doubt. Amy Dunne is fiction. But the careful diary, the perfect mask, the rewritten story, the evidence quietly saved, those are real, running in real homes right now, performed by people who would never call themselves dangerous. You can pity the girl who was never enough for her own parents. Just don't hand her the pen to your life. Subscribe, because the next file the vault opens is the exact phrases manipulators use to make you apologize for things you don't owe. And remember the word, receipts. It was locked. Now it's yours.